what does content enablement actually look like? Is it, are we setting up Zoom calls and having all the reps get on and the managers and, hey, this is the new enablement that's hit? Is it like pre-recorded videos that, we want folks to watch? Is it, here's our content enablement newsletter, or, here's the stuff that's going to hit this week, next week, et cetera? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, I think it could look like any of the things that you just mentioned. I think what's really important is to understand sort of
anything's better than nothing.
Yes, I think that's
what you're saying.
Exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sure I could think of a counterexample, but for now, I think that's a fair statement. I think it depends. Like, I think you really have to know where your point A and where your point B are, because, for example, we work with a lot of teams who are launching outreach in an enterprise org, for example, and the cadence of enablement that you need when you're launching outreach or another sales engagement platform or any kind of sales engagement or sales enablement tools, the cadence of enablement is going to be very different than when you're in maintenance mode. And so, yeah, when you're first launching something or you're rolling out a new strategy, you do want several meetings, and you want to be able to make the purpose of each meeting very, very clear, especially if tech is involved, and especially if your level of familiarity across the team with that tool or that strategy varies a lot, because you're going to have some people who are going to tune in to Zoom sessions, for example, and just think they know it all and just kind of skip over it, and then other people are going to come and they're going to feel really overwhelmed. So I think it's really important to give your team a lot of support when you're adopting something new, and to not assume that everyone's got the same level of familiarity with it. So I think that's just a really important assumption to get past in the beginning. And then we've also
what about documentation? Like, I know one of the functions that we have that we promote for folks is, document your process so that you can scale it better. And I would think that there has to be some documentation on the content enablement side, just so, folks know where to find, hey, what's the latest and greatest? Is that a best practice?
Yeah, I think we've worked with teams who have built, internal resources for their teams. So they have their own internal wiki, for example, that'll have frequently asked questions, or have on a dashboard, have the current quarter's content that's new. So everything that's new is in one place and they can find it all the time. I think it's dangerous, in my opinion, to assume that reps are going to spend hours looking at resources. What they want to do, they want really quick, fast, easy answers. And also you need to be able to tie the outcome very closely to the content process you want them to adopt. And so I think, again, it comes back to consulting reps. I get very nervous when people talk about building things like this and their reps are not involved in the process. It's really important that they see the value, because essentially they're your customers, right? Yeah, I think thinking about the reps as the customers for this content is a really helpful way to think about it, because if they don't adopt it, it's because they don't see the value. Because if reps have a quota, or they're getting paid according to their performance, they're going to adopt something they think is helpful, whether or not it's familiar or not. And so
so don't create the one sheeter and then, without some sort of enablement, hey, here's how you actually take this and use it. A standalone one sheeter or a newsletter or whatever, that's not gonna, I should say no one, but not everybody is gonna look at that.
Yeah, and it could be a helpful piece, but I think you need some kind of live interaction where reps can give feedback. Another thing that I've heard a lot, especially in larger organizations, is that reps are very hesitant to give especially critical feedback, when they think it means more work for them. So if you ask reps for feedback and then you're like, okay, well, you rewrite this content then, they're going to say, well, I'm not going to speak up anymore, because that just means more work for me, which is the whole point. It's why I'm not using this content in the first place, is because it feels like more work. But if you go to reps and you say, hey, I want to schedule 15 minutes with you, and I just want you to give me all of the criticism that you have, and after that, I'm not going to ask you to do anything about it. We're just going to take that feedback and make your job easier. That's usually how we approach that when we go in and write content and do content enablement. And all of a sudden, reps have all of these opinions, and a lot of times managers come back to us and they say, hey, I had no idea that my team was feeling that way. And we're like, well, how did you enable them to give feedback in the past? And usually that was some sort of asynchronous way, like a form or something like that that felt like extra work. But if you get reps live on the phone and you just say, okay, like tell me what's wrong with this system that we built, they'll tell you. And that's really important to get that feedback.